Did you have a little jig then? It's Friday afternoon here in the UK. Little bit of dance music in the background from my good friend Peter Griffiths, who I'm really excited to meet next Wednesday with his gorgeous other half, Mira. As I'm going to be in Berlin for business, I'm going to get to meet those two awesome humans. And like I say, Pete also created that theme tune for me, which I affectionately called Kaleidoscope. Well, anyway, the reason I'm going live today is it's been a while since I did one of my little solo decolonizing our minds through generative listening. And it is actually meant to be a bit of fun around some pretty meaty topics. For those that know me, you can find my Medium blog below. I can get a bit serious. I know I can get a bit serious around all these topics around, equity, inclusion, sustainability, systems, the world I operate within, chemicals. It's all very complex, very challenging. And then we look at the UK and look what we have as inverted commas leadership, which is pretty damn terrifying. But I think it's also quite relevant to this game, really, because when I talk about, and I'm speaking it through my lens and my learning over the last few years, when I talk about decolonizing our minds, I'm talking about breaking the patterns of behavior that keep certain subsets of humanity in comfort, perceived comfort, whilst many, many others, the global majority, are struggling just to be seen, heard, and to get by day. And we don't always see that tussle. And it doesn't need to be that way. I genuinely believe it doesn't need to be that way from what I've been learning. So the idea is decolonizing our mind through generative listening. So 2 packs of cards for anyone that hasn't seen this before. This is the without modernity cards from Decolonising.net. Strongly recommend you buy a pack of these, just for home, for workplaces, have the conversation around these meaty topics. There's a great book actually, which I'm still reading, which is called Hospicing Modernity, which I strongly recommend basically every human being in the West as we know it reads. Because there's no judgment at all in what I'm saying. It's just a lot of facts, which is the game is set up to benefit a select few people, which includes the likes of me. And it's how do we actually, when we have the awareness, that we try and actually challenge that, get curious about that, try and co-create and reimagine new ways. And one way to do that is my funny game, Decolonizing Our Minds Through Generative Listening. So I'm just giving that pack a shuffle. The other pack is the listening deck from my good friend and thinking environment teacher, Jane Adshead Grant. I'm going to give that one a little shuffle. And both amazing packs of cards. And again, if you look at the show notes or the comments of YouTube or LinkedIn, if you're watching this live or watching it back, you'll be able to find links to both of these packs of cards. So what I'm going to do is shuffle this one again, the decolonial ones, and I'm going to give myself a 3, 2, 1, stop. Drop there, flick the card. What does it say? This is mad. Look how big that pack is. This has popped up before, so clearly we need to analyze it. How can we imagine education without the European Enlightenment? What does that mean to you, even as a question? I'm really curious. Does it make sense? Does it not make sense? I'll talk a little bit about what that means to me shortly. But how can we imagine education with or without European Enlightenment? So that's the card from decolonialfutures.net. I'm just going to give this a little. Here we go. There should be some more music in the background, shouldn't there? Just to keep our vibe going for a Friday. Right, stop, cut, and it's this card, which is, the Pretender. So when listening, are you someone that pretends to listen sometimes? You're not really engaged, not interested in what the other is saying, thinking, or feeling? Your eyes glaze over and your mind is elsewhere. So what's now popping up for you? Sorry, it's getting a bit dark here now, but I'm just going to finish this off quickly. When you combine those two things together, so we've got how do we imagine education without European Enlightenment, or without European Enlightenment, and then we've also got the pretend listening. You pretend to listen, not really engaged, etc. Now, why I think that's a really powerful combination is that, I don't know about you, but when I grew up, I had very, very little, what I'll call non-white, non-colonial thinking or stories. The only thing I had was literally about the slave trade. That's the only bit of foreign or multinational education that I had. Everything else was about Christopher Columbus and how amazing it was that we explored the world. Nothing about colonization, nothing about oppression. That's Winnie saying hello for the weekend. None of the real meaty, honest stuff around what happened when we, particularly the Dutch and the British, went around the world 500-600 years ago, colonizing, raping, pillaging, and destroying much of other communities and parts of the world, which, by the way, is happening today. Just happens to be under multinational business, etc., of which I'm part, which is part of the complexity. So how can we imagine that education? And then how do we actually stop pretending that we're actually listening? So my invitation to myself and to all of us with these two cards is, how do we lean in? How do we lean into the difficult and uncomfortable conversations? How do we have a proper conversation about diversity, equity, and inclusion and what it means within an international workplace today, beyond just gender? I actually shared about this yesterday on LinkedIn. How can we truly dive into the intersectionality and understand why is it that we're not actively creating the conditions to be able to support people that maybe have different forms of disability or are less able-bodied, or maybe there's people out there that are actually black and brown folk that actually are not easily accessible through our talent pipelines because of a whole range of different factors. Are we intentionally building diverse recruitment slates? Or are we just pretending? Are we being performative around our listening? We know what's going on in society. We know what's happening with societal and climate breakdown. Are we just ostrich syndrome, pretending we're listening, putting our heads in the sand? What an invitation from those two cards today. Anyway, I could carry on going, but I won't. Winnie, because Winnie the Cockapoo wants to have a play. So I wish one and all an amazing weekend. I hope that this little bit of levity around very, very serious topics is helpful. It's helping me because I'm trying to be a bit more playful around how I dance between these different topics of deep systemic challenge, centering those that are most harmed and oppressed, whilst acknowledging that we're all part of a system that we've been born into and it wasn't our fault. But with the awareness, how do we try and reimagine and co-create better going forward? And that's what I'm all about. And I'm hoping that's curious to you too. So have a great weekend. Do follow the blog. You can subscribe to it at medium.com/@Gary Turner Thinking Partner. I'd love for you to join me on my explorations. I am aware that I've been a little bit dark and a little bit, a bit stuck in the weeds around the systems piece in the last several months. I don't apologize for it, but I'm not sure how helpful it always is. So I'm going to try and bring a bit more levity and curiosity, such as with this game, but not diminishing the seriousness of the stuff that needs to be healed, i.e. workplaces, ourselves, systems. But at the same time, also knowing that to do that, we need to be creative. We need to be connected to ourselves, others, and systems. We need to be reimagining and really using those artist brushes, which are our lives, to try and reimagine and paint on a new canvas. So take care for now, everyone. Have a great weekend. I'm Gary Turner, and see you later. You can hear that funky tune on the way out.